Hello! So it's been about 3 days since my trip to the Sacred Valley of Peru to sit with Grandmother Ayahuasca. I had such a difficult time writing about this experience, being able to put it into words because it was both so expansive and so profound. But here's my attempt. So the first day we arrived, we got settled, we formed a circle with participants and facilitators that would later become a very beautiful sacred container where we would share all of our meals, all of our hopes, our fears, our traumas, our prayers together. We had a ceremony that first day where we learned about coca leaves and the various ways that they nourish our body and our spirit. The raw coca leaves are different from processed cocaine, although there are trace amounts of cocaine in the coca leaves. They are used to help with altitude sickness, thought to sort of help open up the lungs where the air is very thin at a high altitude and also give you a burst of energy. And they're also used spiritually to create quintus. So the spirit of the coca leaf is referred to affectionately as Mama Coca. And the quintu is a set of 3 or 4 coca leaves that represent the cardinal dreams or the various realms. They are infused with your prayer. Often before the prayer you introduce yourself to whatever plant medicine you'll ingest or offer. And then you infuse the leaves with the prayer and offer it back to the earth, which I think is very beautiful. So that's what we did on the first day. Was our first ayahuasca ceremony. Before that though, we got to know mapacho. So mapacho is thought to be the grandfather of plant medicine because it is thought to be the oldest and the most powerful master plant teacher. It's used to cleanse energy, to protect spaces, and to guide spiritual journeys. So we used it on this first day in preparation for Grandmother Ayahuasca to purge. As I said, it's supposed to be a cleansing spirit. So we ingested a liquid form followed by lots of water, which on an empty stomach. So the water and the mapacho goes in, it comes right out. This was probably the most difficult part of the trip for me because I don't tend to vomit that often. In fact, I feel like I had a 10-year streak of no vomiting, which was broken. Streak broken. Yes. So that same night, we got to meet and sit with Grandmother Ayahuasca, Rossanita, who is the owner of the Apu Healing Center, jokingly said that Grandmother Ayahuasca is like a strong and wise soul who wants to clean house. So she wants to recalibrate, reevaluate, rewire your brain, rewire your spirit, rewire your narratives, which felt very fitting because this was during the Mercury retrograde, which is obviously a time to recalibrate, reevaluate, reconsider, release, remodel, revamp. And of course, the preparation going into the ceremony was ritualized. So we all received flower showers, which were infused with prayers. And if you've never been showered by someone else and prayed over, it's a very powerful experience that I had so much privilege of experiencing multiple times during this trip, where many people just send goodwill your way, goodness, and want you to succeed, want your dreams to come true in such a pure and wholesome way, and it was just incredibly powerful. So before ayahuasca, we begin by sharing our deeper intentions with the group. We introduced ourselves again to the spirit by saying our lineage and the calling in places and nature that we have connected to. And I don't want to explain that much about what I experienced, except to say that going into it, I was very unafraid. I felt very ready and prepared to experience anything psychological, any spiritual message, any vision, no matter how, terrifying or dark. I was, however, a little bit resistant to the physical aspect of it. I didn't want to feel like I was sick. Because I had fear and resistance around that, I had a very deeply physical experience the first ceremony. I was forced into each now moment into my body. I felt a bit paralyzed. I had various sensations from the crown of my head truly to the tips of my toes. I feel like on this first night I had to learn the depth of somatic healing and how much darkness could be carried in my body, and how the physical is deeply tied to the spiritual and the mental and the emotional. Yeah, I'll stop there for that first night. But the rest of the trip, which was a total of 8 days and 7 nights, was equally powerful, beautiful, healing, and loving. And I truly cannot say enough about this retreat center. I'll link it down below. From the very first touch point that I had with the center, I felt so cared for, so respected, so seen. Truly feel like I went there and healed. And I was on this healing journey along 7 other souls. It was a very diverse group, which I loved. I kind of thought it might be all women, wrong. I thought it would be all Americans, also wrong. And I cannot describe the familial bond that is created when such deep and profound things are shared together. We became known for our love of fruits. I think because we're a lot of world travelers, and we all identified with various fruit personalities. Shout out to my fruta familia, my familia de frutas, my fruit family. I am the dragon fruits, or the mango. I wasn't sure on that one yet. But yeah, shout out to you all. Miss you. Love you.
You think you own whatever land you land on. The earth is just a dead thing you can claim. But I know every rock and tree and creature has a life, has a spirit, has a name. You think the only people who are people are the people who look and think like you. But if you walk the footsteps of a stranger, you'll learn things you never knew. Have you ever heard the wolf cry to the blue corn moon, or ask the grinning bobcat why he grinned? Can you sing with all the voices of the mountain? Can you paint with all the colors of the wind? You can own the earth and still all you'll own is earth until you can paint with all the colors of the wind. La 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 la.
I left the center with a deep sense of love and reverence for Mother Earth, an awareness of the ways that we're guided by nature, the ways that Mother Nature cares for us, nurtures us, has the capacity to hold our darkness and to turn it into life again. The way that Mother Earth feeds us, delights us, gives us joy, terrifies us. The Andes. Stop everything. The Andes Mountains. So I grew up in New Mexico, around the Sandia Mountains, not too far, and I guess I have to do some research here, but maybe the Sandia Mountains have like a gradual gain in elevation. But the Andes are, when you get closer to the Andes Mountains, they are like these sheer cliff sides, these ominous, towering, larger than life figures that you just know by looking at them that the people who have tried to conquer them have died. And you get a sense that the animalitos that inhabit these mountains are faced with their own mortality every single day, whether it be like freezing temps, scarcity of food, like falling. Just the magnitude of these giants I cannot like describe enough. And it's no wonder that they're given names, because they're all just like these, like beautiful giants. Massive spirits, beautiful, massive spirits.
I've written a short poem to the mountains to express my gratitude. Scraper of the sky, splitter of the clouds, you who uphold the heavens. You who encircled us like towering protective spirits, you formed a sacred circle around ours, cradling us as we journeyed into our minds and our hearts. When we retched darkness from our bellies, you held us steady, grounded. When we rejoiced in laughter, you reflected warm sun onto our plump cheeks. You shared your abundant gifts, el choclo, the squash in our soups, the carrots and the quinoa. You shared your wisdom, your immensity, your life. To Wilcapilco, Yanahuara, Pitusiray, and to Pumahuanca, Yanaorco, and Murillo, I honor you, I send you my gratitude, and I carry you always in my heart.
So in the subsequent days, we also got to sit with the plant medicines of jape or rape, which also contains tobacco, and it's a powder that's blown into your nose. We did this both times before grandmother ayahuasca, and this is used to help sort of ground you and to get you out of your cognitive monkey mind. And we shared a second ceremony with grandmother ayahuasca. This one, I actually had more visions. It was a bit more spiritual, more of an emotional experience, although I'm still very much making sense of it. One thing I do want to share with you all is that I had this beautiful vision of a wolf in the desert. And at the moment of seeing her, I knew that she was me. It was almost as if I was looking in the mirror. She was a little bit sort of shy and cautious, but also very majestic and powerful. And it was so beautiful. So of course I've been trying to draw her.
When I woke up the next morning, I wasn't exactly sure if I was a coyote or a wolf, partly because I was in the desert and I wasn't sure if wolves lived in the desert. But I scoured the internet for images of canines, just like the one that I saw in my vision, and it turns out that she's a Mexican gray wolf, which is an endangered species. And anyways, during the integration that night where I told my friends about my vision, one person asked if I had read The Woman Who Runs with Wolves, and I had it on my shelf for many years. I've since read it. So now I'm going to read a quick paragraph from that book. This is the story of La Loba. There is an old woman who lives in a hidden place everyone knows in their souls, but few have ever seen. As in the fairy tales in Eastern Europe, she seems to wait for lost or wandering people and seekers to come to her place. She is circumspect, often hairy, always fat, and especially wishes to evade most company. She is both a crower and a cackler, generally having more animal sounds than human ones. The role of La Loba is collecting bones. She collects and preserves especially that which is in danger of being lost to the world.
Her cave is filled with the bones of all manner of desert creatures, the deer, the rattlesnake, the crow. But her speciality is wolves. She creeps and crawls and sifts through las montañas y los arroyos, looking for wolf bones. And when she has assembled an entire skeleton, when the last bone is in place and the beautiful white sculpture of the creature is laid out before her, she sits by the fire and thinks about what song she will sing. And when she is sure, she stands over the criatura, raises her arms over it, and sings out. That is when the rib bones and leg bones of the wolf begin to flesh out and the creature becomes furred. La loba sings some more, and more of the creature comes into being. Its tail curls upward, shaggy and strong. And La loba sings more, and the wolf creature begins to breathe. And still, La loba sings so deeply that the floor of the desert shakes, and as she sings, the wolf opens its eyes, leaps up, and runs down the canyon. Somewhere in its running, whether by the speed of its running, or by slashing its way into the river, or by way of ray of sunlight or moonlight hitting it right in the side, the wolf is suddenly transformed into a laughing woman who runs free towards the horizon. So remember, if you wander in the desert and it's near sundown and you are perhaps a little bit lost and certainly tired, that you are lucky, for La loba may take a liking to you and show you something of the soul. We all begin as a bundle of bones lost somewhere in the desert, a dismantled skeleton that lies under the sand. It is our work to recover the parts. It is a painstaking process best done when the shadows are just right, for it takes much looking. La loba indicates what we are looking for, the indestructible life force, the bones. La loba sings over the bones she has gathered. To sing means to use the soul voice. It means to say on the breath the truth of one's power and one's need, to breathe soul over the thing that is ailing or in need of restoration. That is done by descending into the deepest mood of great love and feeling, till one's desire for the relationship with the wildish self overflows. Then to speak one's soul from that frame of mind. That is singing over the bones. We cannot make the mistake of attempting to elicit this great feeling of love from a lover, for this woman's labor of finding and singing the creation hymn is solitary work, a work carried out in the desert of the psyche. And I know that the title of this video might be a little bit misleading. I have felt like I'm in the wrong profession for a while now, and I came out of the entire experience feeling very emblazoned, very bold and courageous, and more confident and loved, and also divinely guided and held. And so yeah, after both ceremonies, the next day I woke up and I was like, time to quit. The time is now. No time like the present, no time to wait. What am I waiting for? Then later we had a Wachuma ceremony after both ayahuasca ceremonies. Wachuma is thought to have more of a masculine spirit, so it's one of the oldest psychedelic healers, I think. Maybe the oldest, if it's the same as peyote, which both of them contain mescaline from a cactus. And I felt so privileged and connected to my indigenous ancestors. This experience was very different. It was very light and bright, and spoke to me of the power of the sun. During the Wachuma ceremony, I had one of the best meditations of my entire life, where I had the chance to connect with my inner child and practice profound forgiveness and release. And it really felt like we were opening and expanding our chests and letting the sun in, kind of like just an expansive feeling of allowing the sun to touch the dark corners of our heart that maybe we keep hidden. It was so beautiful. The music was so beautiful. They sang to us. Again, we prayed together. One practice that we learned from the indigenous people of the Sacred Valley of Peru was that of speaking gratitude over our food.
and specifically acknowledging the earth's role in each part of the meal that you're about to consume. In Braiding Sweetgrass, Robin Wall Kimmerer calls this to follow back the thread of life in everything. What would it be like, I wondered, to live with that heightened sensitivity to the lives given for ours, to consider the tree in the Kleenex, the algae in the toothpaste, and the oaks in the floor, the grapes in the wine, to follow back the thread of life in everything, and to pay it respect. Once you start, it's hard to stop, and you begin to fill yourself awash in gifts. Thank you to Mother Nature for this abundant breakfast and for the gift of a new day. Thank you to the cow who provided the milk and to the folks who helped ferment it into yogurt. Thank you to the earth for providing an abundance of berries, seeds, oats, and nuts, and to the people who work diligently to plant, cultivate, and harvest them. I ask that this meal nourish me for the day, and that I have the courage to use this blessing to bring your art into the world. I pray that this meal brings strength and medicine to my body. I pray that this same abundance rains down onto those who are not so certain of their next meal. With gratitude and an open heart, so it is, and so it shall be.
Yeah, the next day we had a full day of hiking. Half of us opted to do a nude cold plunge, and girl, you know that they say that the one thing that you have the most resistance to is probably the thing that you should do. Out of all the healing modalities, this one is just one that I'm like, yeah, I'm never gonna do that. It doesn't call to me. I'm always naturally cold. I feel like I have my grandma in my head saying like, you're gonna catch a cold. Like, to me, getting into a cold water just is like, why am I gonna get myself sick? Like, no, I'm not doing that. But I did have one of the other participants, Familia, just gave me the slightest nudge. A shout out to Kelly. And I was like, okay, I could do this. Of course I could do this. And so we went to the river, this gushing, rushing river, and the Indigenous practice is to dunk our full body, head and all, under the water 3 times. And big shocker, I loved it. I loved it so much. I felt like I came out, my entire body was sort of buzzing with an ice feeling and a warmth at the same time. I felt very alive. I felt like life itself was coursing through the outer layer of my skin. If you do cold plunges, is this what you're feeling? Or was it the magic of the Andes? I felt so alive, and it was just so beautiful. I felt so alive. So I want to close out this video by saying that I have such an immense respect for the Apple Healing Center team and their ability to hold healing spaces. They have such deep faith and respect for the earth and for these healing modalities. I also want to commend Rossanita. I think because her story, living in New York City, having studied nursing, being Indigenous herself, being from the Sacred Valley, she has that unique position to bridge the gap between contemporary healing modalities and Indigenous practices. And I love that in no way did she expel this idea that the healing center would heal us, but rather that we free ourselves to be ourselves. We have a sense of sovereignty, and we take accountability for our own darkness and the ways that we want to change in the world. Also, shout out to Hitomi. She is a YouTuber who also went to the Apple Healing Center, and she has a video that is a little bit more in-depth, and it has an interview with Rossanita, which is what initially led me to the Apple Healing Center. I always, I've had maybe 6 years that I wanted to sit with ayahuasca, but yeah, I will link that down below if you're curious. And thank you so much for joining me and watching me. I am now in Mexico for the next couple of weeks to do some integration. So hopefully my next video will have some beautiful beach vibes. And I cannot wait to share that with you. And I'm sending you lots of love and fortitude and protection and abundance. Don't forget to put your hands on the earth and send her some gratitude and some love today. Okay, bye.